Hey y'all, it's Tracy and I'm back with another tutorial. This time I'm going to do one on how to make these flowers that I had on the cover of my Blue Mini. And they're really easy, really easy. So let's go ahead and get right into it. What it uses is punch flowers. These were made with EK Success punches. I think it's called a retro flower punch. And 3 different sizes, the large, the medium, and the small. And the way I do it is I usually take a ruler and draw in between the petals on the back so I can find the center. And I take a paper piercer and put the 3, I usually punch at least 3 of each size of each flower, put them together and poke a hole through them with the paper piercer. And then you start stacking them together by size and use a brad. And if you're going to use a paper piercer to make your hole, then you're going to have to use one of the smaller brads. Not a tiny one because it's, it's got to go through all these layers. But you can't use, well, if you use a really big one, then you risk ripping your paper. It wants to, or the small flowers anyway. The bigger ones are alright, but the small flowers want to rip. But after you've stacked them together, and these I put a little bit of stays on timber brown on the edges just to see how it turned out. You have to use a waterproof ink if you're going to do that because this uses a lot of water. So the next thing you would do is take a mini mister, fill with water, and you're going to start spraying your flower. And you're going to have to saturate it pretty good. Not, you don't want it totally to where it falls apart, but you're going to have to add water to make sure that it goes through these petals. The paper that I'm using for this is a Bazzill cardstock that I find at Michael's. It's actually, I don't know if you can see this, it has a shimmer to it, a sheen on the top of it. And it says it's Bazzill Basics paper. It doesn't say it's anything in particular, but it does have that shine to it that I just like that on the flowers. You wouldn't have to do that. But if you're going to use thinner cardstock, you're going to run the risk of your petals tearing off because of the water. It just doesn't hold up. This is like a double layer, and you'll even find with this thicker cardstock that the paper wants to kind of separate. What you're going to do is after you wet your petals, you start squishing them up in the middle. Everything just gets folded up into the center. And it looks like a mess, but it's going to come out really good. You keep adding water as you need it. And as you're pushing these petals up, when you stack them, you need to kind of stagger them, but they're not going to necessarily stay where you put them. But this thing is very forgiving because once it dries, there is no glue on here, so your petals move. And you can adjust them to get them back in between to where they're staggered instead of all the same size stacked up on top of each other in the same position. You're just going to keep going with each layer. And you can see why this needs to be a waterproof ink that you use on here. So not only is it getting wet, it's getting smashed on. So Distress ink would be gone already. And I don't have a lot of waterproof inks because I love Distress ink so much. That's basically that and Stays On are about the only couple of Memento pads, but Distress and Stays On are my mainstay inks. You can do this with any shape flower too. I mean, you don't have to use those EK Success punches. I've found flower patterns on Split Coast Stampers. It was just a page that somebody drew and uploaded on there that had a flower that they had resized on their scanner to all these different measurements, teeny tiny to big, and you can print them out and cut them out, and they were more like pinwheel looking flowers. You can take I've taken my scissors before and just snipped a little wiggly line off the end of these flower petals just to give them a different look on the end. I have a Cricut cartridge, the Don Juan cartridge, has an asterisk on there that if you do the, I think it's the blackout version of it, it looks like a 6-petal flower. So you don't have to have the punches. I don't actually own the punches. My friend had them, and I borrowed them long enough to punch some flowers out, and then I figured if I wanted a different color I could just trace around them. But after you get them all squished up, then you start pulling your flower apart. And I like to use my paper piercer to get them one at a time so I can arrange them instead of just, you know, open it all up at one time. If the petals get folded under a little bit, I can pull them out, or however I need to arrange them. This is very forgiving while it's wet, so you can, you know, really work with it and mold it how you want. You can, you know, curl your petals under, or however you choose to do it. This leaves a lot of room for imagination, and you can match, you know, whatever your project is, you can match the colors and make your own flower. You don't have to go out there in the store and try to find one that's the exact perfect match for your paper. Now the center is going to be pretty tight. These small flowers are going to be pretty close up to this brad. And for the most part, I'm not really happy with just a brad in the center. It's too plain. And there's so many ways that you can, you know, so many different kind of centers you could do. Stickles and buttons and bling. You can, you know, glue bling on top of the brad, however you want to do it. But basically, there's your flower. You see, that's not really hard at all. And you can just, you know, work with it however you want it to shape. If you want the center to be, I know some of the Prima flowers, the outer petals are real flat and the center is kind of squished up. So you can make it look however you want it to. And you could glimmer mist it, put glitter on it. There's just so many things. That's one way to make it. My friend made it a different way in that she, instead of putting a brad and putting all the flowers together at one time, she did them one at a time and wet each individual flower and then squished it up and, you know, shaped it. And I've done one on that order, and I put it together with a hot glue gun. And you could probably use something else, but once this paper dries, it's kind of stiff, so the hot glue really holds it real good. But you just, you know, place your petals in. It gives you a little bit different look. Here's one I made, like the brown one that's dry. There's not a big difference in them, but this one's a little bit fluffier. Your petals might be a little different, but you could put, you know, some pearls in the middle. Or I picked up some of the little rosebuds today at Michael's. You could do that. You could do some bling. Put that in there. Just depends on what kind of look you're going for. I picked out a piece of bling for this brown one to put in the middle, so you can see what it looked like that. There's just, you know, so many variations. Now the one I did on the cover of my mini, I did put a brad through it to begin with and shaped it like I did the brown one, but afterwards I took the brad out and I took my crocodile and I poked a hole through all the petals, and then I took some of these stems, these floral centers, and used some butterscotch alcohol ink and colored them yellow, and then stuck them through the hole in that flower and secured them on the back. And that was a little bit different look. I hadn't done that before. Some of the first ones that I made were smaller versions, so you don't have to make the large ones either. You can make them in different sizes depending on what pattern you use to make your flowers. So I hope this was simple enough for you to understand. I do encourage you to go to the Stamp Arctic website and check out their stuff, though. It's really neat. Let me know what you think about this. Give me a comment. Let me know. Talk to you later. Bye.